What's the deal with Pod Crash? It's a podcast that gets crashed. Yes, they crashed, but they crash their pod? No, it's not in a pod, it's in a kitchen. It should be called Kitchen Crash. Every week someone crashes their kitchen and they talk about life, liberty, and airplane food, because what's the deal with that? I hope you enjoyed as much as I do.
Shut up, and sit down.
Nervous?
Well, I'm tired, so
Okay.
my brain's not functioning at 100%. Just so you know.
Great.
What's new, right? Hi, April. How's it going?
It's going all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the first one we've done that actually has to have a structure. That's why I'm unsure about it.
unsure and nervous now. We used to be a little bit more structured.
Yeah, but it was more like these are all the topics. Now another person's involved and we don't know this person.
Yeah, our first stranger.
Yeah.
Not stranger danger. Just a stranger.
I'm a stranger danger ranger. Some Kimmy Schmidt.
So I guess we should say that the plan for this episode
Yes.
is we are finally going to call one of the authors that we sold out to the publishing company in a good way, nice way. But
we could have covered it a little bit. Why don't you give the setup for what this whole thing entails in case they didn't listen to the last episode ending?
What whole thing? This just what?
What's the whole setup? What are we doing?
Well, we're just going to call an author that is kind of newer. He's just getting started. I think he does have a few books. I think he does mainly poetry, or a lot more poetry. I think he has a few short stories. We're going to call him and talk to him and hawk some books for him.
And we got connected because he's published through...
His publisher is my uncle.
Okay.
Where I hadn't realized my uncle, Chris Clausen, out there, he wrote a book, how many years ago? A few years ago.
Real close to your uncle, aren't you?
Yeah.
He wrote a book, I guess. I don't know, whenever.
I love him. He's in Florida. I haven't seen him in a while. Talk to him.
He is in Florida.
I think.
Yes.
I love you, Uncle Chris. I can't remember where
It's
you
okay. If you live
are.
next door, April still wouldn't know what you were doing.
True. I don't. I'm kind of oblivious to people. But I guess he started listening and he had an idea hey, let's help each other out.
Right.
He'll promote our show and give us authors to talk to, and we'll promote his authors.
Yeah. Called Breaking Rules Publishing.
Yes, it is.
In Florida.
Writing competitions and publishing, yeah. Because
Okay.
I think maybe he started out as writing competitions.
Okay.
Just trying to get writers to help other. He wanted to help other writers because he had such a hard time getting published with his first book, and when he finally did get published, the publisher just treated him like dog shit.
Yeah.
And just threw the book at him here you go, now go away.
Yeah, I think a lot of publishers, especially hire your top publishers, your Random House, that kind of stuff, the ones that publish $1 million books,
Yeah.
I think it's like the Hollywood system style, where it's they're about numbers, they're about profits, they're not gonna treat every single author with the kind of respect that they deserve, because there's so many books that are coming through.
Yeah.
It's unless you're James Patterson or J.K. Rowling and you're making them millions of dollars every year, they're whatever, who cares? As opposed to looking at each individual author as well, they have a story to tell. You know what I mean? Their experience is important, what they're bringing to it, because every voice is different. They do the same thing with people making movies or music, any sort of artistic form. I think it's real easy for them to be oh, well, you're not worth my time because because the money's not there or whatever.
Yeah. So that's his whole
Yeah.
thing. We will call him eventually. We should get his
Right.
story because he's an author himself. He's
Yeah.
written a few books now too.
I'm glad you did your research.
I knew it, but we took so long.
Look
to
him up on
actually-
Amazon. See how many he's got.
I knew all these stats like a month ago when we first had this idea, and I did the research.
And I
then
wrote them down on a piece of paper, and I don't know where that paper is.
I lost the research. I've had so much other things going on where
Yeah.
it kind of just got pushed out of my brain.
Right.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry, Uncle Chris. Love you. But yeah, so that's what we're doing.
Okay.
Before we talk to him, though, in a little bit, what is your... I just lost my train of thought. Went off the rails.
It's okay.
Train wreck.
I can, that's the point. I can wait for you. Just think it through.
What is your experience? That's basically
That's
what I was thinking of.
Okay.
What is your experience with writing? Like what
Well,
kind of writing?
I myself have never been published. I've never really sought it out. But I mean, I used to write as a kid because we would do like little like videos and like skits and stuff. And while a lot of that wasn't written when we were younger, as we got older, so like I think the first thing I ever wrote was the like officially like sat down and wrote was in middle school, I think 7th grade. Myself, your sister, you. No, we would have been 8th grade because you were there, right? So you would have been 6th grade.
Well, I was there regardless. I was usually tagging along.
No, well, it was for the talent show, so you would have had to been in middle school.
Yeah.
Though technically we did.
You guys would have been in 8th grade.
We
and
were
I
in
would have
8th
been
grade,
in 6th.
but we did that skit in 7th grade. But anyway, the thing that comes to mind first is 8th grade. It was you, me, your sister, Bethany, and Justin, who only had a cameo because he was there and he was like, "Sure, I'll do anything about how many lines." Not a lot has changed. I wrote a skit called what?
It was just fairy tales. wasn't it?
Not fractured fairy tales because that's legitimately something else. But it was like fairy tale somethings. Anyway, it was a telling of, it was Rapunzel, but she'd become a feminist and didn't cut her hair because she didn't want a man trying to climb up and save her.
Yep. No, yeah, it was you. You were Rapunzel.
I was Rapunzel.
Yep.
Bethany showed up. Liz, bless her heart, was the only one willing to do boy drag, so she was the prince.
Prince Charming.
Prince Charming, and she comes to get Rapunzel, and I'm like, "No, I cut my hair. I don't need you." And he's like, "But this is my job." And I'm like, so we get into a whole thing. Then Bethany shows up with curlers in her hair, and she's like, "You were supposed to wake me up. I overslept," because she's supposed to be Sleeping Beauty. And then you show up as Snow White, and you're talking about how all these 7 men wanted you to stay and clean their house, and you weren't about that life. And you're like, "Now they won't let me go," and I like had to run away.
I was running away, and my entrance was that I run in and I run smack dab into Elizabeth. I
Yeah,
think. Prince
yeah.
Charming.
So it was essentially like a 5-minute skit about like all these fairy tale, and essentially the fairy tale characters. And I was woke, even at 13, I was like on the cusp of feminism there. But I remember getting a lot of attention because we did that for the talent show, and like, you know, a lot of the kids like would do like dances, or they would try their best to sing like a Whitney Houston song.
Yeah.
But there wasn't a lot of like comedy.
There weren't a lot of good skits.
Yeah. Some of them were kind of like, okay, you showed up and you did it, but that's about.
Every time we were dress rehearsing or practicing, if there was a lull at all, the leader, Mrs. Hicks, would go, "All right, fairy tales, time for fairy tales."
Right, and we would show,
Yeah, everyone just loved it.
It was real fun, and like it was funny, and it was like I don't know if anyone's ever recorded. I've never watched it, so I don't remember.
I think we have it.
The quality of it. I told your sister years ago, get your mom's old VHSs because you can take them to the library and get them on DVDs or get them digital and have that shit forever. But anyway, so like, and so from there, like, and throughout high school and especially in college, like, 1-act plays or little skits or whatever. Like, I got really good at writing dialogue. I'm not the greatest at writing actual like stories because I'm not very descriptive.
You're more like a screenwriter.
Yeah, like I really like conversations between people and like dialogue, and I'm really easy at being like, now you get up and walk across the room, as opposed to being like, she lifted from the couch, and as she swayed across the room, her hips moved in a boat. Like, I'm not good with detail.
Okay.
To me, it's like you're in a room, and they're like, describe the room. I don't know, it's a room. Let's move forward in the story. Which is why I don't like reading authors who are super, super descriptive.
Oh, see, I like that.
Yeah.
I'm more of a descriptive
But
person.
maybe that's because I'm not good at writing it. But yeah, so mostly my writing experience mostly is like dialogue and plays. And of course, when I was in college, I double majored as an English major with an emphasis in playwriting.
Nice.
So,
who wrote I think it was later in high school, who wrote the Blair Witch, the Sandwich?
Oh yes,
project?
that was us.
Because there was another spoof that we did on the Blair Witch.
We did, and that was in high school. That was middle school. That was like
middle school.
That was middle school because I think it might have been the year between middle school and high school because I think we were like 12 or 13, maybe 13 or 14. But I think I wrote the original script for it. But like a lot of our homemade stuff, a lot of it was ad-libbed, thought up in the moment. Well, the inevitable scene that I was the only one who agreed to do, where the camera's up my nose. You know that scene in Blair Witch where she's crying and she's talking to the camera and it's like right in her face?
Yeah.
I was like, I'll do that one. And I just think I made it up as I went, which is crazy now because I'm not good with improv. So like, I'd like to think that at the time I was like, yeah, I got this, and just like made it up. But a lot of it was in the moment, was like, okay, this is what this scene is, and just do this and this. Okay, go. Like, not a lot of writing involved.
That is true, yeah. I think it was pretty much all just improv. I was kind of in charge of the camera.
Yeah.
But I had one scene where Jeannie and I were thugs.
Oh my God, that's
outside
the
of your
greatest
store.
Thing. Yeah, we used to have an old, we used to have a Coca-Cola machine for a really brief time outside of the store. And it was there at the time. And so it was and again, she improv'd the whole thing because we didn't have any dialogue for her. We're like, okay, you're, rattling the machine, trying to get something out of it. And we go up to you trying to interview about the sandwich. And you just like, you're like, I don't know, and then
what do you want, man? What do you want?
What do you want? And you were just like, April will be your toady. And so you just literally stood there and just went like, yeah, man. And like every time she said, oh, it's nasty, nasty, man.
You just repeated everything.
Yeah.
Talk about horrible improv. I was
no,
horrible.
it was so
so
good.
I just repeated everything
but
she said.
That's the beauty of a toady, is that's what they do. They just go, yeah, you tell them. You know what I mean? Like, that's pretty much your job.
I just remember one line that you guys had to each other. She was saying that something about calling or taking your cell phone, and you're just like, no, but I have the police on speed dial. Because she's getting in your face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the one where we were, and Bethany, bless her heart, I know she listens to this, and she's such a sweetie, but we were doing a scene, and we're like, okay, I'm this character who I played, which I think I was called Star.
Yes.
Dumb.
Francine. Your real name was Francine.
And I was like, it's Star. Like, I tried to tell everyone I went by a different name. I was the next scene after I disappear.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, Bethany, I was like trying to motivate her as the self-appointed director. I was like, okay, you woken up, your friend's gone, all your stuff is gone, you don't know what's happening, you're scared. All right, and action. And she gets up and she's just like, what? Oh no, my stuff's gone. My hairbrush was in there. Like, that's
her main concern is her hairbrush.
So funny. Bless her heart. She was just like, and we're like, okay, and we're like, okay, but you're like scared. And she's like, okay, she got better because we did high school plays together, and she was really good. But at 12 or whatever, just like there was no sense of urgency there. The biggest threat was her loss of her hairbrush. But I think I like to say we all got better.
Yeah, I would think so.
But yeah, I do remember that was kind of one of our summer projects, because it was one of those things where for a while there when I was younger, like every summer we would do, or like when we'd have sleepovers, we'd do like usually
little videos,
like fake
and
news sketches or whatever. Yeah, not a lot of writing that went into them though.
I think we still have a video of when one of the little skit snippet things we're doing, you were talking about the news, but your character was also eating cereal.
Oh, I was reviewing cereal. I used to watch a lot of real, like, surreal, odd comedy when I was a kid. Like, in my family, it was like Monty Python was really big. Original SNL, like 75 through 80, was really big. British stuff like French and Saunders and Young Ones.
Young Ones,
So
yeah.
like at like 8 and 9, I had this real weird, like surreal version of humor where it was like, oh, wouldn't it be hilarious if it was just me like reviewing cereal, because that's so mundane. I don't even know if I was aware at the level of like how that's a different level of humor than like your. But I was never one of those people who was like, oh, and then you could sit in the groin, you know. So I think it didn't, like, even if I didn't understand why I thought it was funny, like I think weird shit like that was funny, which I still do, but I guess it made for some really bizarre stuff.
Yeah. I think my one memory is, you were doing that and I was bored, so I was over in the living room playing a video game and I started sneezing. And you could hear me when you were doing it. So you're like, hey, I'm eating cereal. And I think randomly, I was like, good moment of improv on my part. I was like, sorry, I have a weak immune system, you know. And you just like snorted milk and cereal all over the place.
Oh,
like
man.
my one, like, yes, I got Anna.
Right.
Got her to laugh.
Well, we used to do between that like and the like a quote unquote original, and then we would just mimic our favorite comedy bits. Like we would do a lot of Gilda Radner.
Jeannie did that.
We would just take the Gilda Radner skit and we would just redo it.
Yeah.
Like
Jeannie just wrapped herself up in a sheet.
Yeah, and she did the Little Tiny Kingdom.
Like, glasses over her face, and did the
Teeny
tiny ooty booty Little Kingdom.
Yeah. And it was just like, mimicry is the sincerest form of flattery. So it was like, because we loved it so much, but it was essentially just us straight up ripping off people.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
It was still good, though.
Yeah. What about you? What's your history with writing?
I think I've always pretty much loved writing because I love reading. So, I think I found something randomly when I was, like from elementary. You had to write a short little story, and it was horrible, but still, it was. I can't even remember what it was, but I've been writing for a while, and then like, I think in middle school also, I think every year, Heather Mead and I, my best friend, I wrote a little short play or something like that, and we did a skit as well. Yeah. And the one that got us our best traction was Every Kid's Nightmare, I think is what I called it. Okay. And it was Heather and our other friend Amy were two kids, and they were just out camping. But Heather was the older one, so she got the tent. And Amy had to sleep outside. And every time she'd fall asleep, a new monster would come out and wake her up. So, like, I was always the monster. So, a vampire came out. And she'd freak out, wake up Heather. Heather would be like, oh, you're just imagining things. Go back to sleep. Then I was a serial killer, quote unquote. So, I had a box of cereal and a knife. Do the same thing, wake up Heather. And Heather would go, oh, go back to sleep. Go back to sleep. Stop waking me up. Yeah. And finally, we enlisted the help of one of the English teachers, the 8th grade English teacher, Mrs. Woods. And we had her come out as the last monster. Yeah. And she was always, like, everyone was really kind of afraid of her. She was one of the teachers that people were more afraid of. But as soon as you had her, or if you got to know her, she was such a sweetheart. Yeah. But she really played it up and goofed off. And so she went up and, looked at Amy sleeping and woke her up. And we had no idea she was going to do this, but Amy woke up and screamed and, ah! And Mrs. Woods goes, ah! and runs off. And Amy goes, oh my gosh, I just saw an 8th grade English teacher. And Heather's like, oh my gosh, we got to get out of here. Right. So it's the English teacher was the horrible thing that they ran away from. Oh, yeah. But besides just those, I like creative writing. I've been going to a writers group recently and writing and having fun with that. Nice. But yeah, nothing, same as you, nothing published.
No, with a writers group, I've never been part of one specifically, but do you workshop your writings, or do you just mostly talk about like the art of writing and like inspiration?
The ones I've been to, no one has really had anything finished or ready to workshop. Like, that's always an option where they say, hey, if you have something you're working on, bring it and we'll workshop it, we'll read it, give you feedback. It's like we get pointers and tips, like here's some like publishers, look at or read things that people say about these publishers and their trips on getting published and whatnot. And
Yeah.
then usually we'll have at least one writing prompt.
Okay.
So we'll
I
write
love a
for-
good writing prompt.
They've been really good.
I took a couple of writing classes like that were not that like I took a nonfic or like a creative fiction creative fiction class, and I loved the writing prompts because you get some of the weirdest stuff you would never think to talk about.
Yeah.
One of my favorites was everyone chose a random word and we put it all in a hat, and then she wrote, or like we all wrote it down on a piece of paper, gave it to the professor. She wrote all of the words on the board, and you had 10, 15 minutes to write something that and try to include as many of those words as you could.
Ah.
And so like one of them was like atonement, the other one was like washing machine, and I wrote this like 2.5 pages. I think I still have it. That it's about this couple that moves into a new place and they're cleaning it out, and it's like, and they trying to figure out based on what they're cleaning, like who used to live there. They're like old washing machine on the front lawn, and like I want to say I would like 12 copies of the book Atonement shoved in the wall, like just the weirdest. And they're like just talking about what was this person's story, like why is all this random shit here. But it was so interesting because it was like you were just trying to fit as many of the words as you can organically into the story.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's one of my I like a writing prompt.
Yeah, we've done writing prompts, and then like afterwards you'll get like 10, 15 minutes to write, and then we'll read it out and like critique
Right.
each other's, or like say what we like, what we didn't like,
Yeah.
or what we need.
Well, when I was in college as a playwriting major, you had to take the playwriting course essentially, which was a workshop, which means you would write something, bring it to class, you would read it, or someone would read it on your behalf, and then you would just essentially spend an hour, because it was one class per person, critiquing, like just not ripping it apart, but like just not holding back. And it's one of those things where it's really scary, especially if your creative process is really like personal, and like it takes a lot for you to put stuff out on paper, because sometimes you want to write it down, but it's so good in your head, or it's hard to express it.
Yeah.
And when you do, it's a real vulnerable thing. But I think overall, even if it is nerve-wracking, it's really beneficial to have a workshopping environment to be able to like hear other people's what they're getting from your work. Especially, I mean, it helps when it's other writers because they understand.
Yeah.
As opposed to like if you were to like make a movie and show it to random strangers, because they aren't going to get.
They tear more of it apart.
Yeah. But if you do it amongst people who understand, okay, well, I see what you were trying to do here, but just so you know, this is how it kind of comes out.
Yeah.
Because like anything, you do something and you're like, okay, this makes sense to me. And someone's like, I didn't get that at all. Like, oh, that's their motivation as a character. I didn't pick that up. Maybe you can add something else in to make me understand more about this, that their childhood was like this, and that's why this happened, kind of thing. So it's a scary thing, but it's also, I think, very beneficial.
Let's check on the time. Sorry.
What time is it?
It is right now 3:26.
Ooh.
So we can give Roy a call
Okay.
if you feel comfortable.
Do you want to take point on this? Do you want to lead, or
Sure.
you give me a nervous eye?
I'm always nervous talking to people I don't know.
Yeah, because I'm so great at it.
Yeah, you are.
I have to for work, but it doesn't mean I like it.
Well, I kind of have to for work, but I also don't like it.
Well, I think one of us should take at least the introduction and the outro.
I guess I should, since I've kind of talked
What's
to
all
him.
your idea? What's your whole idea?
Well, you take point then, Anna. Give me that look. Like I'm twisting your arm, making my... Whatever.
I don't want to talk about it.
I don't want to talk... Whatever. Okay.
Whatever.
So we are calling Roy Jeffers. Yep. He wrote the book that we have.
Yes.
Is The Writings of a Madman. It's Life's Poetry, Book 1. So I believe he's done other books since then, books of poetry.
We can ask him.
But I think this is his first book of poetry that he's had done. So let's give him a call. And hopefully this works.
We're testing it because this is the first time we've done it.
I've called a couple people. I warned him that it may come up as like an unknown number. But hopefully I changed it and I had to like attach it to my phone number.
He doesn't answer this. What do you want?
What do you want? Who's this? Okay. If it works, we're calling through Skype. I like that little tone.
Right?
Hello?
Hi, Roy.
Hey, how are you doing?
Hey, this is April again.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well.
Awesome. Well, we're recording right now, so thank you for letting us call you and talk to you.
This is my pleasure.
Hi, Roy. I'm Ann. I'm April's co-host on the podcast.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Great.
All right, April. You take lead.
So this is our first time doing this, so I hope forgive me if I kind of stumble along. So Roy,
Mine too.
how long have you been writing?
Well, actually, since I've been writing songs since I was a child. Actually,
Writing
But,
songs?
yes,
Wow.
yes, yeah.
What kind of
you know,
songs?
Well, most of the time they were rhyming songs. Sometimes they weren't, but most of the times they were. For some reason, that's what grabs my attention. Is just rhyming.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
And actually, there's so many people that I've known that likes my writings that usually don't read, that now read just my writings just because of that rhyming aspect. It kind of pulls you into what I write.
Nice. Wow, that's pretty awesome then that you can get people to actually like get into reading more.
Right, right.
So you said you started like with writing songs. Were you a musician, or did you just like the aspect of the lyrics of a song?
As far as the music was always in my head.
Mm-hmm.
As far as actually writing notes down, I'm not that talented. I've never been directed in that direction in life, other than in school when I was a child. Taking a little bit of music class, but
Mm-hmm.
that didn't grab my attention back then either, and I really wish it did.
Right.
'Cause-
I always applaud people who can play an instrument. I was never that talented either.
Right, right. It's a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, well, essentially, poetry is really just. Music is essentially just poetry set to music.
Yeah, kind of. Yes. Sometimes I don't have, when I write a poem, I don't have music in my head.
Mm-hmm.
I have just like I want to get a point out.
Mm-hmm.
And but I'm a rhyming writer. I guess I'm a poet. I guess
Mm-hmm.
that's what I am. But I have a hard time calling myself as a poet. I just like to tell stories and rhyme, and this
Mm-hmm.
and that. I have fun with it. It's a hobby that actually it's really odd and crazy how it just pops into my mind. Some of these stories.
Mm-hmm.
I've written several. I really suggest people to read them. I think they'll like them.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever write any long form writing, or is it mostly poetry and lyrics and rhyming?
Actually, I do have a rhyming novel that's coming out.
Oh wow.
Wow.
It talks about several things. It takes the history's mysteries, like the crystal skulls, and it gives a little bit of a kind of my idea, my explanation for the mystery of the crystal skulls, and
Ooh.
it's awesome. I talk about Vikings, I talk about cowboys, I talk about present day, I talk about future,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all in a novel that's actually about to be published here soon by Breaking Rules Publishing.
Nice.
My
Yeah.
publisher, Christopher Clausen Rule.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's really awesome. So it's an actual full, but it's still got the rhyming that you enjoy in there, like.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. It's actually an amazing story. It gives an idea of how to bring like a sustainable how can I say it, like free electricity for everyone, free
Mm-hmm.
transportation, around the country, this and that, and it talks about a guy that took and brought the deficit that we have now and fixed it. It has many different ideas that are possibilities, but who knows? Maybe one day it'll come to pass. We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Right? It's fantasy writing. It's a beautiful thing.
Right.
Yeah.
It's great when you can like create a world or an environment that's
Yes.
something to strive
Yes.
for rather than something to settle for.
Yes, right. And I hope to grab people's attention, to read this, because I think it's actually a Mark Twain kind of story, but it's rhymed out. It's not, I'm not knocking any other story authors out there or anything like that, but this is a new twist. This is the whole daggone story rhymes.
Yeah.
Beautiful thing.
Nice.
Everybody
Wow.
ought to check it out. Yes.
And I think that's really an interesting way to do it. So there is that kind of element of song to it, because, like I said, a poem's kind of like, it with the rhyming and the structure can feel like a song without music. So I think that kind of has a lyrical flow to it that you don't get with just regular writing.
Books normally, yeah. So it'll be quite a.
It's kind of hypnotic. He'll pull you right into it.
Right.
Yeah.
So the book that we were able to look through was the Writings of a Madman, Life's Poetry, Book 1. And what was the inspiration behind this one?
It's odd because I don't know. I mean, to be honest with you, I just started getting the ideas of. I had a lot of lonely times, and during these lonely times, I ended up, started writing again. And thing of it is a lot of this stuff just comes to me like all of a sudden pops into my head.
Mm-hmm.
And when something pops in your head, the best thing to do is write it down, right?
Oh, right. Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's what I do. So, I mean, I know it's odd. I think that a lot of my stories, most of my stories, I'd almost say all of my stories are God-given, but sometimes I do get a little ornery with some of the things I write.
Right.
And we all know that that's not too God-given.
Well, it's hard to. It's one of those things where in order to appreciate the good things, you have to understand the bad things, and so that it's important to have a balance, I think. So if everything's too great in your life, then you don't understand.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it's mostly just kind of a collection of things you've written out through the years when
come to you and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yes. I have most of my books. I have over 30 books that
Oh, wow.
are going to be coming out, series of books, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Every one of these
Congratulations.
books are, this is all coming to me. I'm telling you, this is all. Every one of these have just pretty much will fall into my lap. All I'm doing is writing stuff down. Ideas just pop in my head. Very, I don't know. I think it's the universe speaking to me.
Yeah.
Who knows? But I don't want to get too crazy on that. But it's odd to me that I am a union bricklayer. Thank God, just for that right there, I'm blessed. But it's odd to me that I get several of these stories that just naturally come to me. That I feel it's my responsibility to share them with the world. So as soon as I write one of these stories, I'm not hoarding them and writing books and then trying to publish them books. I am putting them on Facebook immediately. I'm editing them on Facebook. I'm posting them on Facebook. I'm putting 26 rhyming stories, poems together, and I make a book out of that.
Wow.
But I post every one of these rhyming stories on Facebook, and then I form it into a book on Facebook. And I'm posting all this on Facebook. I'm giving the world free words, free book on Facebook. And then Christopher and I turn them into books, and we put them on the market to sell. But I'm giving it to the world first,
Right.
as God would want me to do.
That's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it speaks to the passion and
I'm
love
not
you have
really
for
sure
it.
how many authors who write books, who actually produce, manufacture books on Facebook for the world,
Yeah.
and then turn around and produce them
Right.
on paper.
Yeah, a lot of authors, you can't get anything for free, as it were. Like, they don't want to give anything when it's not
Right.
something they're going to make money
There's
off
many
of.
different aspects here. I'm writing stories, novels that rhyme,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm giving it to the world for free first,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're putting it on books,
Right.
So this is not a money-hungry thing. This is a love thing. I'm sharing my love with the world,
Yeah.
That's the explanation for everything I just said.
Uh-huh.
Definitely, that's
I'm
amazing.
just trying to share love with the world.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I was reading the book, and there is definitely a overall message of like love throughout a lot of the poems, of like self-love or loving the people around you and thing. Was that intentional, or do you, well, I guess you said you kind of write them down as they come to you.
Right, exactly. I pretty much will just write what God tells me to write.
Mm-hmm.
Not, whether it's God, the universe, I don't know, but whatever pops in my head.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's coming from a positive thing, because I know sometimes occasionally I'll write negative stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
like you said, it's a balance that you have to put out.
Right.
It's a yin yang kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. I'm kind of curious. How did you come across Breaking Rules Publishing? Like, how did you first get involved with that, or find the publishing company?
Well, once again, I have to give credit to Facebook because I just being a creative writer, I would post stuff on like Kid Rock stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. I'd post stuff on like Kid Rock and his page, and I meet all kinds of people from all around the world. Then I'll friend request them,
Mm-hmm.
and then from there, I'll find people. But I found a beautiful friend of mine named Darcy Drake from Michigan,
Mm-hmm.
and she introduced me to Christopher Clausen Rule. He became my friend on Facebook as well. I think, let me back it up. Darcy Drake liked one of my poems.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the As I'm Free poem. I'm not exactly sure which one it was.
Huh.
She liked one of my poems, and I friend requests, pretty much with whoever likes my stuff,
Mm-hmm.
And then from that point, she introduced me to Christopher, and then Christopher is pretty much guiding me from here.
Nice.
So essentially, do you guys? You said he helps you kind of put them in book form. Do you just essentially approach him when you have kind of a set that
Yes,
you're like, I'm kind of ready to get this out on paper, and he just kind of helps you from there?
Yes, I know it sounds pretty pathetic, but I pretty much will just I'm not writing all my writings in a book. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
writing them. I'm not punching them down on a typewriter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty raw. I'm using my phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what kind of formats he needs, this and that. So what I do is I just post stuff from my phones, from my notes in my phone. I'll put it in my notes. I'll email it to myself. I'll email it to,
Mm-hmm.
Christopher with Breaking Rules Publishing,
Mm-hmm.
and which he's always looking for good authors. Everybody, I think everybody should really, whoever is a serious writer, should really consider Breaking Rules Publishing.
Mm-hmm.
That's just me saying that.
Yeah.
But anyways, then he'll take everything that my improper formats that I send him, and he'll basically restructurize the whole everything that I send him and put it into a book, and makes things beautiful for me.
Oh.
And I really appreciate that.
Nice.
Because I'm a union bricklayer, and I'll write several poems a day or stories a day, and I don't have time to. I know he don't have time either. That's why I really appreciate him.
Uh-huh.
But he's knowledgeable, and I'm not. I'm not trying to put down bricklayers across the world, because
Right.
Bricklayers are very intelligent people. But me personally, I'm a bricklayer that's not. I don't even know much about a podcast. I really don't even know what I'm doing right now.
Oh. Oh.
It's like a radio show, basically.
Yeah. That you'd have to seek out because it's
What?
not
You
just
got
on the
me
radio. Unfortunately, not on the actual radio. You'd have to seek it out, but it's kind of this along the same lines.
Right.
But, well, I think, but what I think you're saying is, I think it can, like strike a nerve with a lot of people, because I think there are a lot of people out there who are creative, who have these ideas, and they're worried because they don't necessarily think that they don't have like a training in it, or they don't have the proper, they don't want to take the chance because they're afraid they're not going to fit the mold of what a writer should be.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's a good message that you're sending, that if you have those ideas, or if these things come to you, just write them down in whatever way you want, and then you'll find somebody, or you'll get a chance to give them out to people, and it doesn't have to fit the mold of what someone should be when it comes to writing.
Right. I mean, I strongly suggest, artists, whether it's artists of whatever form it may be, canvas, paint, whatever, writing, whatever, to put down their raw emotion and whatever they do, and just open up and let things just like channel through them and just put it down.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a really good message to spread because, I think a lot of people don't take that chance because they're worried about not doing it quote unquote right when it's really there's no right way to be creative.
Yeah, I'm a madman.
Yeah. Okay. April, did you have any other?
I'm kind of blanking, but I think we've hit a lot of things. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
No, I'm very thankful for a lot of people that's helped me get to the point where I'm at, which is actually just putting something down that's going to actually carry on forever.
Absolutely.
I don't know how far it'll go, but I know one thing, that I'm happy that I'm a published author doing the things I do, and I'm very thankful for Breaking Rules Publishing for helping me out with this.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful for everyone who reads, and just people that I inspire, people I entertain, people that like me, people that don't like me. I love all y'all.
Right. Just yeah. So if anyone is interested in purchasing any of your books or even just following you like on Facebook or any sort of social media, where can they find you?
Let's see. Breaking Rules Publishing has a link. You can find that on Facebook, or I'm sure you could probably even Google that, Breaking Rules Publishing. And then Facebook, I'm on that, and under Roy Jeffers.
Okay.
And also the Writings of a Madman. I've got 2 accounts on Roy Jeffers. You'll notice that I have the sun in my picture and a magenta kind of thing cursing out of my heart.
Okay. That's a good way because
But
I'm
anyway.
sure if you look up Roy Jeffers, there's probably multiple. So it's good that's
Right.
that's they know that they
Right.
want to follow you.
They both are pretty spiritual pictures,
Okay.
odd and spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, those pictures are not done by an app. Those are actually real pictures, with my phone.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes you do crazy things with apps, but
Right.
those pictures are actually real.
Oh, nice.
So where can people find your books? Are you just on Amazon, or are you through?
Yes, Amazon, Kindle. Once again, I don't know much about Kindle. I don't know much about Amazon,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm kind of backwards when it comes to a lot of things. I'm kind of inverted individual that's a bricklayer struggling through life.
Right.
Yeah.
Just like everyone else in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why this is all so cool to me.
Yeah. But I'm sure, if they Google Roy Jeffers and then, writings or
Yes.
books or poetry, I'm sure, first couple things that'll come up,
Roy
we're going to be
Jeffers.
able to. Mm-hmm.
We'll try to
Writings
set
of
up.
a Madman.
Yeah, we'll post some links as well when we post the podcast, and so you know.
Thank you.
No
you for
problem.
helping me out, because,
Thank you.
I need all the help I can get.
Oh,
So do we.
If anybody out there
right.
in the world wants to help me out.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Roy. It was a pleasure talking with you.
All right, thank you very much. It's a pleasure. I really appreciate it. I really do. This is thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's it. All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, bye. It's like 20 minutes. That was pretty good.
Yeah, that actually flowed really well.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay.
I didn't know that he said he had 30 books out. Or
Yeah,
he has tons more
wow.
coming out.
I
so
applaud anyone who can.
Props to him. Yeah.
The fact that he writes it down when it comes to him. There's so many ideas I have that I don't, and
Then he can actually finish them. I have a problem where I get tons and tons of ideas and I can get them started,
yeah,
but then they're just gone.
right. Oh yeah. Well, I applaud, and especially what he said about not being necessarily knowing what he's doing as far as formatting or that kind of stuff. I don't think that should deter people. If you want to write it on a notepad in your phone, do it, because it's down on paper and
Yep. If you want to write like J.K. Rowling did, write
on a napkin at a cafe.
if that story is true, because there's all these conspiracies. But she writes it on. If you want to write a story on a napkin, do it.
But I think, like he said, I don't think there's a right or wrong way to create art. So
Definitely.
write it down, and maybe you'll have them for years, and then one day something will happen and you'll be able to get them out there. And or like he said, he just puts them on Facebook. I think that's really nice. A lot of people,
That's pretty amazing.
their
That's
their first thought is to how can I monetize my art, as opposed to how can I just put my art out there for people to enjoy. And I think when you have that level of like heart in what you're doing, I think it comes across.
Oh yeah, definitely.
when you read their stuff.
Well, I mean, could definitely hear that from him, and definitely the Writings of a Madman. It's like you said, there is a lot of just love and kind of like forgiving people.
And I will tell you, I mean, because I know if you listen to this podcast, you know we're not necessarily the most religious individuals.
Nope.
So even though a lot of his poetry is about God, capital G, it's not, I think there's a message you can get from everyone, like every poem without, you know, that I mean, that you can take something away from it, even if it's not something that you yourself can directly recognize. You know, so I don't think, again, this is coming from somebody who's not a religious person. I think don't let the fact that some of the poetry is religious deter you from reading it and really thinking about it.
Yeah, because I mean, you can definitely apply it. Oh, strangely, like a lot of the poems I could kind of apply to stuff that were like I'm going on with my dad.
Yeah.
And whatnot. Just like it almost seemed like some of the writings were kind of sounded like they could be from like my dad's perspective.
Right.
And I'm like, wow, and it helps you
and like I think
about your own life.
And I mean, I've never been that great at writing poetry, and so I guess I thought to myself, oh well, I'm not a poetry person. But I think there's something about poetry other than the lyrical side of it, the flow of it feeling like a song kind of a thing. It's a really good way to get a lot of something across in a very short amount of time.
Definitely.
Which I think can make it way more impactful, because you're essentially trying to tell a story within 10 lines. Within 10 lines, and doing it in a rhyming format, which is really difficult to do. And so I think if you don't consider yourself necessarily a poetry lover, I think it's still worth giving it a try and reading them, and just and a great thing about poetry is because they're so short, you can reread them 3 or 4 times and just think about each line by line.
Yeah, you can spend tons of time just thinking about poetry.
Yeah. So it was nice. I haven't read poetry in a very long time, so it was a real nice to go back, and because I haven't really read poetry since I stopped, since this that poetry unit in 9th grade English or whatever, where they make you read poetry and you're like, I don't understand the wreck of the Hespera.
Yeah,
why do I have to read this? It's about a boat. Why do I care?
I turned back to, I think I took a philosophy course. I took a couple, but yeah, what I always hated about a little bit sometimes about poetry is when you're, especially in classes, when you have to critique it. They break it down line by line. The sun came out. Well, what does that mean? Yeah. Bitch, it means the sun came out. What the hell do you think it means?
Right.
It can mean a bunch of different things, depending on who's
is
writing
it.
it.
S-U-N? Or is it S-O-N?
S-O-N? What is it?
It's about him coming out.
Does it mean
you know what
both?
I mean?
Is it coming out from, like, the closet? Is it, a million things. But I have liked poetry. I don't like critiquing it. So just actually being able to...
It feels more raw than critiquing, like, a story. So it's harder to, do... Yeah.
Because, there's a million ways to translate it or think about it.
Yeah. Well, I think that could also be one of the reasons it's so emotional to get out there, because there is so many interpretations. You can't really write it and be like, well, this is what you think, because this is what you have to think, because this is what I meant when I wrote it. No, it's kind of up to interpretation the minute you put it out there for anyone.
Yeah.
So.
For anything, symbolism. Yeah. But yeah, I actually liked reading this, because it was the first time since college and high school that I could just sit down and actually I was reading a book of poetry to read it, and not having to overthink everything. It was just, how do I think about this?
Yep. What am I getting from this? Yeah.
But yeah, very good. I recommend it.
Yes.
I kind of want to look at his other stuff now too.
Right. Well, we can find it on, again, Roy Jeffers, Jeffers. Jeffers. Sorry, sir. Roy Jeffers. Yeah, and Amazon, Breaking Rules Publishing. I think we've said it a fair amount. I think your uncle will be very happy with the amount of times the name of the publisher has
Breaking
been said,
Rules Publishing
has been said on this podcast. Especially considering I think last time you said the breaking the rules. So I think we've made up for it, definitely.
Breaking Rules.
But yeah, he's got a lot of works out there, so find him. Or if you're interested in his daily,
Yeah, his freebies.
his affirmations for the day, you just follow him
Snippets,
on social media.
yeah.
He made it sound like if you pretty much are interested, just befriend him and
Well, he friended me, so I think I can kind of post a link to his Facebook.
So when this goes up, this will be we'll try to post some links with it. So if you want to get his materials,
look in the description.
So I mean, we can't speak to his other writing because this is the only one I've read, but it's Writings of a Madman, Life's Poetry, Book 1, and it's very enjoyable and. And you got to support independent writers because otherwise all of the books will be written by James Patterson and Nora Roberts, and while they write very good material, I want more variety.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It'd be like if you only ever watched movies that were blockbusters and you never went and watched independent films.
Little
You know what I
indie
mean?
ones or something, yeah.
So you got to make sure you're supporting these types of things, and again, it's a good inspiration if you at all are ever, I really want to write, and I think reading people who are less edited is a good way to get an indication, because you just read the ones that are for sale.
Haha, that's you.
Oh, it's Savannah. Hope she doesn't need me to come into work. Sorry.
Who's getting a phone call now?
Anyway. Yeah, so
Yes, support the little people. And people are just starting out, or he sounds like he has a lot
he
of
has
stuff
30.
already.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
he has a bunch of stuff, but yeah, gonna support everyone else and support each other.
Right?
Love.
Everybody say love. That's what RuPaul says. Haha, I got the Drag Race reference in.
You got it. You snuck it in.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Yep.
I'm not talking to you, April. I'm talking to the people
Everyone
listening.
else. I know.
She looked at me like, why wouldn't I join you? I'm
You're
here.
in my house, Anna.
Anyway, until next time.
Donka bitches.
Donka bitches.
Thanks for listening to Podcrashed. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Podcrashed Podcast. You can also check out our website at www.podcrashed.wordpress.com. Email us at podcrashed@gmail.com. We promise to answer your questions. Theme song is by Creo. New episodes come out on Tuesdays. And as always, Donka bitches.